with these birthdays that end in 5 and 0, and I hear you just had one, I'm just wondering, those birthdays tend to have us pause and
Hmm.
reflect maybe even more than an average birthday in between. And so I'm just wondering here, what kinds of reflections around grief or things like that came up for you this year?
Well, I think what was probably most prevalent was that I just turned 60, and I that 10-year span between 50 and 60 was a big deal because I was 50 when Veronica passed away, and it was on my 50th birthday that we had to go to CU Medical Center to look for some experimental treatments because the surgery wasn't enough and the chemo she was on wasn't working and the cancer was back. And I remember crying like on the floor of the shower, showering to get ready to go to the hospital with her. And I was devastating, and I really had no idea what the future would hold. I couldn't even really think about the future. I could just think about the present and how horrible it felt. And
Yeah.
then you move forward a few months later, and she was dead. She was gone. It happened that quickly. And the birthdays in between those two, between the 50 and the 60, a lot of them are kind of a blur.
Mhm.
A couple of them were pretty good under the circumstances. I had a couple of people treat me very kindly and
Mhm.
nicely, and I don't know. And there's a couple that I don't even remember. I don't even
Yeah.
remember that they happened. I'm sure they did happen.
Mhm.
And I'm very lucky to have really kind people in my life.
Yeah. What about, Jim, the birthday that was, because you were a bit younger than, a couple years younger than Veronica? What about that year that you turned the age she was when she died, or the year after? That can be a big deal for bereaved
Yeah,
when they kind of outlive the age that their person was.
it was a very big deal, much bigger than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Veronica was 53 when she died, and when I turned 53, I had a lot of guilt. I had a lot of guilt for living to the age she was at. I had guilt when I turned 54, an age she never got to be. And it was that was also the beginning of the pandemic, and
Yeah.
I was going a little stir crazy, like many people were at the time. But it was one of those things that I don't know that it's possible to anticipate how that was going to feel. Like I knew it was a thing, I had read it was a thing, but when it happened, it was far more difficult than I anticipated to
Mm.
process those emotions, the feeling of why am I still here and she's not. And as you know, the milestones that happen, especially immediately after a loss, the first holiday season, the first anniversary, the first birthday that they're not there. I mean, I've written about this in the book, that one of the things I wrote in one of the chapters about the new normal was about, September 4th and April 7th are going to be very, very difficult days, as is July 3rd, which is the anniversary of her death. And that's still the case. One of
Mhm.
the interesting things that comes up is within a year or two after Veronica's passing, within the first year or two, there were a couple of people that would reach out on the anniversary of her death. And then that went away for the most part, which is totally normal. I'm not criticizing anybody. There's no reason why that should be a special day for other people. But it felt very lonely.
Mhm.
It felt very lonely the year and the year after that on the anniversary of her death. I was so surrounded by people when it happened. The first birthday, the first Christmas, that when the subsequent years came, the assumption around me was everybody just thought, oh, well, that was then and this is now, and we miss
Yep.
Veronica too, but let's have
Yep.
some turkey or whatever.
Yep.
And it's similar with birthdays, and
Mhm.
I do have the opportunity to reflect with my kids on that.
Mhm.
They are very present for those moments with me, and that's really helpful.
Well,
But
and I think you also point out something about like the difference between milestones and anniversaries that other people from the outside can, that have a little more distance, can see
Mm.
and maybe validate, and then the ones that are more personal
Yeah.
and unique to your family system,
Yeah.
right? Like who holds those and who continues to check in on those is very different.
It is, and it sometimes varies from year to year. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some years where people won't remember, but then the following year they will. Or I don't know how close this is to the topic we're talking about, but I just had an interesting conversation with my mom this morning. And my mom is a wonderful woman. She's been through a lot, and I have a lot of respect for the way that she approaches life. And so we just spent this lovely weekend together with a whole bunch of family, celebrating me, which was
Mhm.
awkward, but still great. And when my mom was leaving this morning, she gave me a big hug and she said, "I'm so glad you're happy." And I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say because a part of me is happy and a part of me is something else. I don't know. I can't say it's a part of me is sad because it's not that simple. But coming to grips with celebrations and milestones in the context of this has been it's been nuanced and it's been challenging, and that a lot of the evidence in my life of being able to hold on to happy moments for just being happy moments has gotten a lot easier and a lot better. But the big moments, it's still a bit of a challenge to navigate that, and I'm learning to just let myself feel multiple things and hold all of that at once. But
Yeah.
it's very difficult to describe, you know.
Well, I think it's one of those things that with my therapy practice, one of the ways it shows up is when I have a client who's there processing and being supported in their grief. I will tell them the first time that I see them almost say that they're having a good day or a good week. I will say, listen, you're always welcome to tell me that because I know it's layered. Right below it is everything else.
Yeah,
And so, like, I know that you feel like you want a caveat for everybody else because you're like, make sure they realize that this is still complicated
yeah, yeah.
even 10 years later. Like, and so I think that piece of really treasuring those people and like having people name, oh
Yeah,
no, you can have a good day and I know it's like sadness or
yeah.
grief or right underneath that, you know.
And I think that I'm probably more fortunate than many other people in that I have a family and close friend dynamic that's very transparent and honest and
Yeah.
emotionally mature. And you know, it's a bunch of people that have been through a lot of shit themselves and they get it because this is not the kind of thing that is easy to explain without having experienced it. But that reluctance that you talk about, it's a real thing. Like to not want people to think that you're that happy,
Yeah.
and it's not a performative thing. It's not like, oh, feel bad for me, but there's an element of like, yeah, there's an innocence for me. I can only speak for myself, but there was an innocence, a naivete, a belief in the world that I lost that I'm never going to get back.
Hmm.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something that makes parts of life more challenging. Some people lose that at a very young age. There's children who lose that every day, that type of innocence. And that decision that we get to make about are we going to allow ourselves to become jaded and cynical, or apathetic, or are we going to lean into this in a way that doesn't dismiss the challenges, but allows for a richness and an enhancement of our life that possibly we wouldn't have gotten to experience any other way, which brings its own complications. But I'm trying to choose the latter. The former is, it knocks at the door more often than I would have imagined.
Hmm.
But for whatever reason, maybe it's the examples that I have around me, maybe it's, you know, good therapy or whatever, I don't know. But we have that choice, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it.
Yep. Well, happy birthday.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
As complicated as it is.
Yeah, I'm hoping for more.
Yeah.